Alrighty, I want to next invite Bianca, oh God, I'm messing up your last name, even though I practice it, Sopoci-Belknap with the New Energy Economy. Thank you so much for being here.
I think, just Bianca, before we get started, I think I'm in trouble. This is our jobs. This is our jobs plan, and there's a lot of notes on that thing.
Don't worry. So yeah, hi everyone, and thanks for having me and having this conversation. So my name is Bianca Sopoci-Belknap. That's how it's said, and I work for New Energy Economy, which many of you probably know. We do climate justice work and economic justice work in the state of New Mexico to try to push forward renewables and break open the economy in all the ways that you described earlier. So one of the things that is really important to us is to assess what it is that's keeping us from the vision that we all share. So if you ask New Mexicans if they support renewable energy, the vast majority of New Mexicans absolutely do, and recognize the economic opportunity that a transition to renewables would provide. The barriers are real, and one of the sort of biggest elephants in the room is the fact that in New Mexico we have what's called a regulated monopoly utility model. So, if you live in Santa Fe or Albuquerque, you have one energy provider, it's PNM, and you have no choice. If you want to have electricity, you can either get electricity from PNM or you have to go solar yourself on your house. If you wanted to hook up with your neighbor and put solar panels on the person's house who's best positioned to have solar panels and then share the electricity, that would be illegal in the state of New Mexico because we are not allowed to pool our demand for electricity in a regulated monopoly structure because that is the arrangement with PNM is they have a monopoly, right? So I appreciate what you said earlier about wanting to have, these opportunities for investment realized and the idea of state ownership of some of the electricity, but that is currently illegal in the state of New Mexico. So my first question is what to do with the elephant in the room and this restrictive legal structure that inhibits us from actually realizing this opportunity and prevents individuals in our state from exercising any kind of energy choice.
Well, I think, and I know what you're talking about. I think we have to sit down with the legislators and PNM and yourselves, all get at the table in the PRC, kind of work it out where we can kind of start looking at that. I think the first step is we have to bring everybody to the table and have a conversation how we can do that. Because PNM, we they employ 30,000 people. So part of our energy plan, and they also own the power lines that I want to send right to California. So my proposal is, we argue and fight too much. So my proposal is let's all get together and collaborate because we know we can lower everybody's costs. And I know your guys' organization, what you guys want to do, but what I want to do is make sure we're lowering everybody's cost, right, for New Mexicans and then generate more additional costs. So what I want to do is I want to bring actually PNM to the table and say, okay, we have to give and take a little bit. So as we're generating more renewable energies and investing into more renewable energies, I actually want them to invest with us and be one of our partners, and then we can kind of all work together to kind of diversify our economies and diversify opportunities that way. So I think there's ways we can kind of talk about that. I'm probably not the expert into doing that, but we favor those opportunities. And so I think what we need to do is just all sit down as governor. I want to all sit down and kind of start moving down that road because we know we sit between sun and wind. We know we sit in the number one, number two place. We can do that, and we know we can lower costs for everybody. But we want to make sure we don't put 30,000 people out of business. So we have to kind of work with everybody and kind of make sure that we're diversifying our economy together. So, but I'm very aware of that, and I'm not the expert in it, but I'd like to. I know I've sat with your group before and visited more about it. And I think it's very interesting. So I think we need to sit down together with all parties and collaborate and work it out together.
Great. I wanted to follow up with a specific legislative change that could lead to greater diversity in the economy and, like you said, provide an opportunity for not just PNM but others to sit around that table and have a go at producing energy opportunities in the state. So there's something called community choice aggregation. I don't know if you've heard of it, but what it would do is it would be a change at the state statute level. So we would change the law through the legislature to basically break up the monopoly that PNM has. And what would happen is then as communities, we'd be able to aggregate our demand for energy, and then we'd be able to put that demand essentially up for bid, right? So which energy provider can offer us the lowest cost energy, can meet certain criteria, the same way that you put out a request for proposals and you specify, what kinds of criteria you're looking for providers to meet. You would be able to do that with energy, and then folks would be able to come in both from the ground up, so New Mexican businesses that are looking to provide renewable energy, as well as out-of-state providers would be able to offer the community and the energy, and then the community would be able to decide which provider they wanted to go with. Now, to your point, PNM would still have a role as utilities do, IOUs utilities do in states that have adopted this legislation, because they would be in charge of that transmission that you're talking about, right? So they still make their money from, basically wheeling the electricity from these other providers.
Transmitting the electricity.
Yeah, so I'm just curious to know, yes or no, or you can expound on it. Would you support that kind of legislation?
It sounds logical. I haven't really read too much about it, so I don't want to make a commitment today, to be very frank and honest, but talking to your guys, it sounds logical. What I like to do is bring all the parties together and kind of make sure we work it out. The only thing I'm cautious about on what you said was outside energy companies buying from the outside, because that's what we do across the board on many different areas, and then we're not creating local jobs or local energy here. So I actually want to do the opposite. I want to use local New Mexico-based companies. I want to use local New Mexico technology and invest in New Mexicans. And I believe we can literally, because of our 2.1 million people, I believe we can literally lower our costs on our own and have excess energy to basically sell. I want to be the one selling out. I don't want to open up the doors because I don't want to be undercut either. But I think by today's, and you probably know the numbers better than me, but today's standards, we're generating 13, 18 cents a kilowatt. We know renewables, we can get it down as low as 4. So we know we can get lower costs for New Mexicans. I just want to make sure that we're using New Mexico industries, New Mexico businesses, and capitalizing on our opportunities and our strengths, because that's our whole model, because that's everybody's using us. So I'm actually trying to make sure that renewables is the way to go. We can literally lower all our costs, right? And if we continue exporting our gas and oil and gas and stuff like that, that's going to all change versus the demand. And as everybody across the country and across the world starts moving more towards the Paris Agreement and more towards renewables, that's going to go back to the supply and demand. I want New Mexico to be prepared for the supply and demand. Now, if you're not aware of this, because I wasn't aware of this a couple years ago, I was literally talking to some of our local solar companies before the bubble burst when we took away those credits. I was like, my biggest concern is Arizona and Nevada are going to beat us to the punch. I never worry too much about California because there's so much population in California, and then the land is so expensive that we can always do it cheaper than California. It's just that. But I was always worried about Nevada and Arizona kind of beating us to the punch. And I hate to say that the good thing about it is they can't, because in today's technology, Arizona and Nevada get so hot that their panels literally don't create as much energy as ours because it never gets too hot here. So we'll always be in a better position to create more energy than our neighboring states. So on that point, that's really what I want to focus on. And then I want to sit down with all the parties, but I'm still getting to know some of this information. So thank you.
Totally, yeah, and it would start with a rewiring, because in order to create that sort of local, homegrown business opportunity, we'd have to break up the monopoly. So the last question that I wanted to ask you really quick is, PNM has agreed to finally close the San Juan generating station, yes. Which has been the single largest polluter in New Mexico, and folks are nervous in the Four Corners area about how that transition will take place. And to your point, how do we make sure that the benefits of transition actually are felt and experienced and given to the folks who have been impacted so heavily by fossil fuel dependency in our state? And so I'm interested to hear from you what a just transition means to you, and how you would, through really specific policy, make sure that specifically the Dene community is taken
protected.
care of.
Absolutely, and keep in mind too. Let me kind of clarify something to my knowledge about it. You know, everybody, talking about coal miners, and we're talking about this. They don't do this anymore. They don't use picks. They're actually computer scientists. They use high technology. So we've talked to them about how we can transfer their job skills not only into solar work, telecommuting jobs that pay that much or even more, but renewable energies. And we know some renewable energies will be a little bit lower cost than what they're making right now. But as I've said, the world's economy is changing, so we have to change with it. So we have to look at is creating telecommuting jobs and solar work jobs that people in our rural communities can do other jobs besides the mining in those jobs, and those are high-paying jobs. Those jobs pay between $80,000 and $100,000 a year. So our proposal is, let's make sure, because a lot of them are already computer scientists, right? So let's make sure they have those skills, and then we build co-working spaces or solar workspaces, whatever you want to call them, so they have those opportunities for those. So when that does come, and it's already happening, by the way. I mean, it's already happening. So we have to make sure, and that's where we talk about the job training, the job opportunities. So I hope I answered your question, because I know we're looking at opportunities that way too.
I don't know. I'm looking at the timekeeper.
I think it's up.
You totally did. Maybe you can work into one of your answers for someone else what cleanup also looks like, because it's a jobs piece, but it's also definitely remediation and cleanup and reclamation at the site. Okay, thank you.
While the next person's coming up, the cleanup, that's a longer conversation, but I know that our federal government and our private companies will have to work with us on cleanup, and sometimes history shows that they haven't done the best. And we'll make sure, as your governor, that we'll make sure we create guidelines that we work on that.